And welcome everyone to WCW Nitro versus WWF Raw is War, June 16th, 1997. Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please hit the subscribe button at this time. You will catch things like this on a weekly basis. I've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, for about a month now. And I also deliver on AEW Dynamite. If you guys are not familiar with the channel, there are some of the things that I work on. I'm going to go back on my word. I said I was going to never watch another WWE show again or do anything involving WWE related and review it on this channel, but tomorrow I will be watching Money in the Bank. I've heard the reviews from JD from New York 206, which is one of the reviewers I do follow on a regular basis, week to week. I just figure at this point, fuck man, I got nothing going on this channel. I might as well have a reason to bitch and moan. And Raw and SmackDown definitely deliver on bitching and moaning. And I'm pretty sure you guys will enjoy my rants as I go about destroying this company to shreds. Not to mention Money in the Bank, I don't particularly think is going to be all that great of a show. But forget about Money in the Bank. That's for tomorrow. Today is WCW Raw, or WCW Nitro, excuse me. June 16, 1997, and WWF Raw is War. So, let's go into WCW Nitro here. The first thing, just to let you guys know, this is taking place in Chicago, Illinois, in the United Center, where the Chicago Bulls play. They actually did have Dennis Rodman show up at this show. They have Dennis Rodman and Hulk Hogan show up to the arena tonight with Eric Bischoff, and they head out to the ring to challenge Lex Luger and the Giant for a match tonight instead of having the match at Bash at the Beach. This later on becomes the main event of the show, which I will go in further detail about what happens. So, the first match that takes place is Mortis versus Glacier. This was a fucking waste of time. And Mortis actually does pick up the victory here. And that's basically... Or actually, wait a second. Yeah, Mortis does pick up the victory with a chronic kick, and that's that. End of story. Glacier loses. Don't really particularly care for that match at all. After the break is over, we get to Medusa meeting with Mean Gene Okerlund to give her goodbye speech, even when she's acting all emotional. Some guys just still can't resist whistling at her. Okay? Yeah, so there was a lot of whistling going on during that segment. Very emotional moment for Medusa. I mean, she did lose in a very great matchup at Great American Bash. Very pleased with that match. I mean, if you did not catch that match at all, you definitely should. It's the Great American Bash 1997. If you have not seen these last couple of videos I've done on the WCW Nitro versus WWF shows, I do the pay-per-views as well and review them. So the next match after this segment was Dean Malenko versus Chavo Guerrero. So for costing him the WCW US Championship last week, Malenko actually goes after Chavo Guerrero instead of Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero does not have the match with Dean Malenko, which I think is a smart thing to do. I think that should be saved for a major match coming up, a major pay-per-view coming up, such as like Bash at the Beach, which happens in July. Dean Malenko actually does go ahead and win this match with a Texas Cloverleaf on Chavo Guerrero. Very solid, entertaining matchup. After the match is over, though, Eddie Guerrero does show up on the rampway, and Malenko stalks Eddie and gets close enough to where he just leaves. And that's pretty much that. These matches did not go very long. They go about 2 minutes and so forth, so not much to talk about here. So we're getting a commercial about WCW Saturday Night, which I can't do anything with. They don't even have. I don't even think they have shows on the WWE Network right now for people to be able to watch. So meanwhile, Ric Flair is being interviewed on WCW's website by Mean Gene Okerlund and Mark Madden, concerning his best matches. And firing up those modems, folks, blah, blah, blah. Something this reviewer stating in his thing. We had Super Culo versus La Parka. I didn't particularly watch this match at all. I skipped it. Didn't care to watch it. So Mean Gene Okerlund brings out Lex Luger and the Giant. The crowd boos when Lex Luger mentions how he made Hulk Hogan give up last week. It's pretty surprising. But I'm assuming, so pretty much he goes ahead and says yes, he would accept their challenge as well as the Giant would. And they go about their business, and the match is now set to happen at the end of the show. The Amazing French Canadians versus Harlem Heat. This matchup was average at best. I didn't particularly care for this match very much. I just watched it because Harlem Heat was in it. And Harlem Heat won with the Big Apple, which is basically Stevie Ray holding up their opponent and Booker T delivering a side kick to the face and knocking their opponent straight to the mat. I also believe with that move, besides that, when their opponent gets kicked in the face by Booker T, Stevie Ray basically spine busters him, and then they get the 1-2-3. And that's pretty much the overall consensus of that match, or of that maneuver, I should say. So, Mean Gene Okerlund is standing by with J.J. Dillon. Okerlund brings up tonight's main event when Harlem Heat and Sister Sherry walk over and ask about their tag team titles match now that they are the number one contenders. J.J. Dillon says that there was some shenanigans going on in their matchup with the Steiner brothers. So, it's decided that next week they will have a rematch to determine who would get the shot for the championship matchup against the Outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Vince trolls out and telling the Heat that what he did was an early Christmas present. Nobody gives Harlem Heat Christmas gifts 6 months early. Vincent then gets his tail beat up again at this point. So, Harlem Heat's pretty pissed off. They seem like they're changing from heels now to faces, granted, with the help of NWO getting involved in this whole number one contender shtick and really just fucking over Harlem Heat out of their shot for the WCW tag team titles, and now have to earn the right to be the number one contenders for those tag titles. So, I don't quite blame the Harlem Heat in this situation for this storyline that happened. Now we're into Hour 2. WCW Cruiserweight Champion 6, known as X-Pac, a.k.a. X-Pac with the Outsiders, versus Rey Mysterio. This matchup was pretty entertaining. I actually enjoyed this match, except for the ending with a 3-on-1 beatdown to Rey Mysterio, which I thought was a load of bullshit. So let's go through the whole entire situation that happened. They keep giving Ray matches against Six, but they always end the same way since the Outsiders are never banned from ringside. This one looks to be no different, which that was the case. There was no different. Second hour fireworks go off in the middle of the match. It's so necessary while Six delivers the Bronco Buster. Hall and Nash drop cigar ashes and blow smoke in Ray's face. Six misses the flying somersault, and Ray mounts his comeback. Head scissors abound, and Six takes a breather on the floor, and Mysterio does a fake dive only to then come off the top with a somersault maneuver. Back inside, Ray hits a flying hurricanrana, but must shoot off the cover to take out Hall and Nash. He's successful in stopping their interference this time, but the kick from 6 takes his head off. Buzz Killer after that for the submission and the win. So he does get a victory, but granted again with multiple interferences by the NWO from the outsiders. This really doesn't help anything. It's rinse, repeat. Something that WWE has been doing in modern day wrestling. They seem to keep rinsing and repeating themselves, and that's what WCW used to do back in the day when they were in business. I don't know why WWE does that, but I see a lot of watching this show. WCW Nitro reminds me of a lot what WWE is now. The only difference is between the two shows is WCW still was more towards the adult type like audience. It wasn't all childish bullshit. The dialogue wasn't so idiotic and stupid. Now, granted, there was some dialogue on these shows that they've done, I have heard, that come across a little bit over the top. The WCW announcers sometimes come over the top. Mean Gene Okerlund definitely over the fucking top. He may have been the greatest freaking interviewer or reporter in wrestling history, but he always came over the top when he talked to the wrestlers and conducting an interview. I don't know why, but he never seemed natural to me. But because of his name, and he does have a great persona. I mean, I got to give credit to Mean Gene Okerlund. And Hulk Hogan definitely helped Mean Gene Okerlund look great and become a very famous character. So Kevin Nash gets on the stick and tells the world that NWO Wolfpack, which at this time the NWO Black, the red and black was not around yet. It was just, they were calling themselves the Wolfpack because of Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, X-Pac, and Macho Man Randy Savage. But the black and red didn't actually come about. Eventually that split Hollywood NWO and Wolfpack NWO into separate entities. I guess apparently the NWO Wolfpack was more the face NWOs, while the white and black were the heel characters. I don't know. I'd have to stand by and watch these episodes as I move along through these episodes throughout the upcoming weeks and so forth, and once they split them up. So he tells the world that the NWO Wolfpack is the strongest beast in the jungle. Scott Hall mentions Piper and Flair, but just doesn't care about them anymore. Moving on, Hall brings Randy Savage and Elizabeth down to the ring. They hype up the crowd with catchphrases until Diamond Dallas Page and Kimberly from somewhere far away inside the United Center. He makes a challenge. This is a night of challenges, and no doubt. To Randy Savage and Scott Hall for the Bash at the Beach. Now, he mentions that he's going to have a mystery partner. And his mystery partner and him will make Randy Savage and Hall feel the bang from DDP and his mysterious partner. Now, this mysterious partner, I can only imagine, is actually Sting. But I don't think Sting really does anything at all until Starrcade. So I'm wondering what the fuck happens here going into Bash at the Beach. So it should be interesting finding out what the mysterious partner is. Here's some illogical booking. I actually remember this one very well. Ultimo Dragon versus Chris Jericho. They mention in this episode, during this matchup, I should say, Jericho is going to get a one-on-one opportunity for the Cruiserweight Championship against X-Pac, known as Six, on a Saturday night episode. But he lost last week against Alex Wright, and now he's getting another match with Ultimo Dragon, and Jericho loses this match. So he's lost 2 matches in a row going into a championship opportunity. Now, me personally, I don't particularly see any logic behind that. That is the most dumbest thing you can do. You're going to announce the man is getting a shot for the Cruiserweight Championship, yet he's losing to Ultimo Dragon, and he lost to Alex Wright the week before. That's fucking illogical bullshit right there. Match was good. I had nothing against the match, but the end result of Jericho losing and them announcing he's getting a shot for the Cruiserweight Championship made no fucking sense. So, whatever. So good old Mean Gene meets with Rowdy Piper, and he wants to know why Ric Flair left him to get beat by the Outsiders last night, which is the day after Great American Bash. Ric Flair heads out to respond, and he doesn't really say where he went, but Flair says they'll be friends to the end, woo, and that's it. Mentions that him and Six were competing backstage and he was fighting him off, but he left his partner high and dry, leaving a lot of question what the hell's going on here. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I honestly, and if you guys are, if you really pay attention to this, it really tells you a lot that there's something going on here. You're definitely going to see Rowdy Piper versus Ric Flair down the line at some point. I don't know when. So, that was pretty much that. Nothing there. It was very broad. It didn't really explain anything. Very vague. Nothing helped explain why or what caused Ric Flair not to come back to the ring. I mean, did he get beaten up by the NWO? Anything? He doesn't even mention that. He just kind of states that him and Six go about beating each other up, and he ends up being high and dry with the Outsiders, which to me made no sense. So after that was Steve McMichael and Jeff Jarrett versus Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton. This matchup was nothing. The only thing we got was Steve McMichael turning on Jeff Jarrett, costing him the match, leaving his partner high and dry, and he also attacked his own partner, and Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton get the victory here. So, as Mongo's actually walking up the ramp, Mongo tells the cameraman that he knows what Jarrett did at the Great American Bash to cost him his match. And there you have it. Bagwell takes a little too much camera time showing off himself. He talks about how great he is. He's very, and he talks about how he's so great in the ring and blah, blah, blah. And he's just really absorbed person. To be honest with you. That's his whole gimmick of his character. Last thing on this card, and then we will move on to WWF Raw's War. Hollywood Hogan and Dennis Rodman versus the Giant Lex Luger. This was nothing. The match ended up being a complete squash. There was no end to this match. It was just a non-stop load of attacks by the NWO, getting an upper hand over the Giant and Luger. And it seems like this match is going to happen. Only thing is, why did this match happen here at all? Now, my personal opinion on this, I don't have an issue with the idea of instilling this matchup. It brings a little bit more of a tease to the audience to want to go out and purchase the pay-per-view at this time. And I mean, when do you ever get to see a guy like a Dennis Rodman or a sports celebrity or any kind of big name show up on live television and actually perform or do anything in the ring? You don't get nothing until you see the pay-per-view and you purchase it. This was a different scenario, so giving them a slight taste of what to expect between Hogan and Dennis Rodman versus the Giant and Lex Luger, I think was a smart decision. But maybe this being the main event wouldn't have been a good idea to do. Maybe save it for like the middle part of the show or something. Because this wasn't even a main event match. It just was a joke. But yeah, Dennis Rodman, Hogan, and the rest of the NWO tear apart the Giant and Lex Luger, spray paint them NWO, and that's that. And that's how the show goes off the air. Now, not much to speak of Nitro, and nor WWF. WWF Raw's War was not much of anything either. This took place in Lake Placid, New York, in the Olympic Center arena. They do mention that good old Stone Cold Steve Austin will be stripped of the tag team titles and will be teaming with someone else of his choosing. They're also having a tournament to determine the not a number one contender, but an opponent for for Stone Cold Steve Austin and his tag team partner that he chooses to go up against in the finals for the upcoming, I think it's a pay-per-view they're going to have, or, oh wait, they probably had it on a Raw episode, because I don't remember back in the day that they had a finals tag team championship match occur. So they go ahead, they talk about Shawn Michaels being injured, and they talk about Bret Hart's knee being completely healed now. He's injury-free and he can come back to work and perform. So at this point, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he comes out, heads to meet with Vince McMahon in the ring, and Austin says he doesn't need a partner in the first place, which cues Mankind on the Titantron. He says he felt the bond between the two of them when Austin flipped him the bird last week. Together, he feels that he and Austin could set the tag team scene on fire. I gotta say one thing, Mick Foley as Mankind back at this point in time, he was fucking entertaining as shit. I actually enjoyed the living hell out of this. Just watching these episodes, Mankind has stood out like crazy. I mean, everyone went crazy over Steve Austin, but I think Mick Foley was even better than Steve Austin at this point in time. Just being able to watch these episodes from all the way back in this time. I have to say Mick Foley's probably better than Steve Austin. Only thing is, Steve Austin really had a lot of intensity. I mean, he put a lot of intensity in his promos. You could feel it. He seemed more like he wasn't acting. He really felt what he said. I mean, not about the people he was competing against, but just based on all the anger and all the frustration he dealt in his professional career with some of the other promotions that he performed in. And I can imagine he probably had a little bit of frustrations working in WWF, even back in that time, even though WWF was awesome to work for. They had what you would say a wrestling company instead of a three-ring circus. But he probably have endured a lot of annoying shit going on with Vince McMahon, because, hell, I mean, Vince McMahon's one of the most annoying promoters in the country, or in the world at this point. I don't think anybody's as annoying as this motherfucker is. So Austin goes on to say he doesn't care for it. He doesn't care. He didn't need Shawn Michaels and his long hair and butt shaking. And he doesn't need Mankind either. Mankind says he has long hair, can wear one earring, and feels he has great looking behind. Then he goes on to tell Austin to have a nice day. That segment was fucking funny. So Vince McMahon goes ahead and plays back what happened with last week with Austin and Scott Pillman, or Brian Pillman, I should say. Since Pillman didn't get what he has coming to him last week, tonight he will be flushed down the toilet to join all his little friends in the sewer system. So, just as Vince McMahon reminds everyone that the Hart Foundation will be handcuffed to the ring posts, Ken Shamrock interrupts. He thinks Austin is a bully, and we all know this guy hates bullies. He wants a match with Austin right now. Austin says he has no problem taking him out after he takes care of Pillman. Shamrock tells Austin it's time to knuckle up and walks out. And that's all. I'll say this. Promo by Ken Shamrock getting involved in this, didn't like it. Don't like his delivery. I did not like what he had to say. He seemed very over the top. Just didn't care for it. Ken Shamrock was really, outside of his wrestling ability, he really sucked on the mic. Badly. I just can't stand listening to him on these last couple of episodes I've heard him talk. It's just fucking ridiculous. So after the break, Brian Pillman appears for a backstage interview. Vince sets up the piece by reminding him of the swirly he received at the King of the Ring. He tells Vince that even though the Hart Foundation will be handcuffed, he's the one that is the convicted felon. Shamrock has nothing to worry about because Stone Cold is going down the toilet tonight. That was all. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, versus the new Blackjacks for the quarterfinals for the tag team titles. Of course, if you thought the new Blackjacks with Bradshaw and Dan Servin was going to be the winners out of this, you're fucking crazy. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith win this match. Easy. And the match was actually rather decent. I didn't mind it at all. Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Phineas Goodwin. This match was crap. Didn't care. Triple H wins with a pedigree. Whoop-de-doo. We had a little bit of ECW going on, by the way. There's also a backstage interview with Farouk promising two bigger, better, badder, and a whole lot blacker members of the Nation of Domination. Okay. Whoop-de-doo. Brian Christopher versus Chris Candido. Brian Christopher is coming out of this developmental system in Georgia, and he's going up against Chris Candido from ECW, which I thought was pretty cool that they did shit like this back then. So Paul Heyman actually was on commentary. He was rather good. So it was in a promotional matchup. Match didn't really end, but with a DQ because of Lawler runs down and pulls. So Lawler runs down and pulls Candido down off the suplex to draw a DQ. Rob Van Dam joins Lawler and Christopher for a triple beatdown on Candido until Tommy Dreamer comes in and cleans house with a steel chair. Of course, in ECW, these two aren't friends, so Candido seems to have a problem with Dreamer getting involved. Now, there is a mention, which I never knew they were going to mention this on national television. Brian Christopher was stated by Paul Heyman on commentary that Brian Christopher is the son of Jerry the King Lawler, which at that point fueled Lawler to show up and cause the disqualification at that point. Immediately, like that. Why they did not give ECW an opportunity to show up on a pay-per-view event for WWE at that time, because they seemed like they were in a working relationship somewhat, I don't know. I think that was the dumbest fucking thing they could ever do. I think they would have made plenty of people very happy and want to purchase the pay-per-view, and especially back at this point in time, pay-per-views weren't that expensive, like $19.95, $29.95, some shit like that. They were not expensive at all to purchase. Today's day and age of WWE pay-per-views, or even fucking AEW for that matter, $49.99 ain't a cheap price. $50 is not cheap. That's as much as you can spend on a freaking brand new video game. And it's actually a little bit cheaper than a brand new video game, but it's pretty damn close. At this point, we go ahead and we have Goldust versus Jim the Neidhart. Didn't particularly care for this match at all. So you get Anvil the Neidhart gets a uppercut to the throat by Goldust and gets the 1, 2, 3, and that's that. And the match ends. They also play Bulldog's theme music, which I don't understand why. They made a mistake there. But then they correct it with Goldust's music. At this point, Austin says Shamrock wants him to enter his world, but Austin guarantees Shamrock that he will rock his world, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. And that was just a backstage interview that was given to Austin. Now, hour 2 starts, and we have Steve Austin versus Brian Pillman kicking off this show. This matchup ended up being a disqualification. And not to mention, I will say this was shit. This match was boring. I did not particularly find Brian Pillman and Steve Austin to be a good match for each other as competitors. Fucking joke. This match sucked ass. It ended up being a disqualification. Eventually this led to one of the Hart Foundation members getting away with the key and getting access to it from the referee. The referee was actually knocked down. The referee was right by, I believe it was Owen Hart who was able to get the keys. He pulled the key out of the referee's front pocket, undid the handcuffs, and passed it on to the next person next to him in his group, and they managed to get free and beat the shit out of Steve Austin at the end of this matchup. That was that. Now, after the match was over and there was an attack, everybody was attacking him. Mankind, Goldust, Ken Shamrock head down to the ring to clean house. Comes down to just Austin and Shamrock in the ring. Austin attacks, but Shamrock blocks the punch and gives him a belly-to-belly suplex. After some schoolyard brawling, the Legion of Doom head down to break up the fight. Goldust gets on the mic and convinces Austin that he, Shamrock, and the Legion of Doom should join him to face the Hart Foundation at the Canadian Stampede pay-per-view. Very oddball group here for a 5-on-5 tag team matchup for this main event. I'd have preferred probably Mankind with Steve Austin, Goldust, and the Legion of Doom. But Shamrock, I don't know, man. I mean, Shamrock was not going to really help out the team, and he was going to be too focused on wanting to kick Steve Austin's ass. So I didn't particularly like the idea of having Shamrock part of this team instead of Mankind. So that's just my opinion on that one. Bobby Fulton versus Tommy Rogers. Didn't watch this match, didn't care to. Nothing big about it. The Headbangers versus Jerry Lawler and Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam actually, let me see here. So basically, Lawler, let me just read this to you. Paulie and Tommy Dreamer look all menacingly from the front row. Vince makes a big deal over those two jumping the rail last week. RVD tries his split and monkey flip routine, but Mosh stomps him on the back of the head and splashes him in the corner. Double flapjack connects. Thrasher runs into a boot in the corner and takes the monkey flip after all. Jumping kick out of the corner is enough for RVD right now as he tags in Lawler. Pulls on Thrasher's face and tags out. RVD hits the 5-star frog splash and lets Jerry Lawler cover for a 1-2 and then a kick out. Hot tag to Mosh. He goes slam crazy and he knocks RVD to the apron and delivers a springboard clothesline to send him to the floor. Meanwhile, Lawler delivers the pile driver to Thrasher while Lawler starts jawing with Dreamer and Paulie. And the referee is busy doing something else. The Sandman comes out of nowhere. Comes in and low blows Lawler with his cane. He exits the stage right as the Headbangers deliver the stage dive to Lawler for 1, 2, 3. End of match. The Headbangers win the match thanks to the Sandman. I gotta say, this matchup with the Sandman being involved, fucking awesome. I absolutely love seeing the Sandman on there. Surprising the living hell out of me. Thought that was great. So, Ahmed Johnson and The Undertaker go up against Farouk and Kama Mustafa. Now, Kama was actually an announced new member of the Nation of Domination. This match didn't last very long. It was very boring. I didn't pay much attention to this either. But Ahmed Johnson, at the end of all of this, joins the Nation of Domination. He fucks over The Undertaker, does the Pearl River plunge, and joins the Nation of Domination at the top of the ramp, and boos stream throughout the arena. And that was the match. That was the main event. And these two shows, I gotta say one thing, they both sucked. I didn't particularly care for them very much. They seemed equally as bad. Probably the best one out of the bunch. I'm going to go with Raw on this one. They did deliver a little bit. But WCW did pretty good too in their own right with some of the spots on this show. So, I mean, it's pretty much even. I didn't really particularly going to pick a side here. I'm just going to say they're even, and that's that. So anyway, guys, like I said earlier in the show, if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe now. Leave a comment down below, and hit the like button if you liked the video. And I thank you very much for watching. Take care, guys. Bye.